obviously, it was fair to assume that when he said we're going on strike past September 14th, he meant we were all going on strike. Okay, and I still maintain that the way to put maximum pressure on the automakers is to make them unprofitable. We're saying that this slow drip is keeping them guessing, keeping them on their toes. They don't know which plants are going to go down next. Again, if you shut everything down, no cars get made until the auto workers get a good deal. Period.
And there was a poll, Kean, there was a poll that showed that around 75% of American people supported the auto workers. So,
Right.
So what is the argument for giving away that leverage and taking it easy on the unpopular CEOs and bosses of the auto industry? There is none. There's no reason to take your boot off the neck. Now, is there a possibility that their 3-day road strike and get workers some gains? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Exactly, yes.
The argument that I make is that they will get more if they had their boot completely on the neck and did a full strike. The establishment do not want a full strike. So then you will have the leverage and you have public, you have the majority of the public on your side. You have public goodwill. And then you force the bosses to concede to demands that the public is already on your side for. Now, I understand if you want to do a 3-day rolling strike and you want to test the waters, if the populace is like 50-50, Keaton, because it makes sense. He's like, all right, we got to make sure we uphold public perception. People don't want us, we don't want to be blamed for the economy being destroyed. But that is not the situation we're in. We got, right now, even Republicans, Keaton, are forced to give lip service to the auto union because that's how popular they are. When you have this amount of popularity, you use it. Right. So the social democrats and the union bosses right now is handcuffing the movement. Even if they get a labor win, it's not as big as the labor win they could have got if they had a more revolutionary approach. And that's why a lot of social democrats, the people who are part of the union psyop, where the union bosses completely overwrite the will of the workers, because unlike the Vanguard and other people, I actually talk to workers. We talk to UAW people. We cover what the UAW workers was actually saying, and they went into full strike. So the union bosses decide we're not going to do a full strike. We're going to do a rolling strike. So whatever the union bosses say, social democrats and people who don't read theory like the Vanguard and others, they take that as gospel, Keaton. Right. Whatever the union bosses say is the position that the left must have.
Right, because they also feel like they need to have a champion. I think a lot of this is wanting to maintain faith in institutions, wanting to maintain faith in leaders. And Sean Fain was saying all the right things into the run-up of this strike. And I want to reiterate, very importantly, that I still am rooting for Sean Fain and the UAW to get the best deal that they can. As Nick said, they could very well end up with a good deal based on this. A stand-up strike is still better than no strike. I'm not saying this is not better than nothing. It is, and we're hoping that it works. What we're saying is that the more aggressive approach would have been better, and I want to address this. This is a Rumble rant. Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
It's not going to be long, but question I want to ask for people who have critiques of my position, like a lot of these fake social democrats on Twitter, is why do you support the union bosses of UAW overriding the will of the workers who wanted to do an all-out strike? So there are people who was all for the all-out strike until the union bosses say, no, we're going to do the rolling strike. And now you got the people like the Vanguard who pretend that's a great strategy now.
Well, but what the guys like Jacob are trying to say is that they were never promised an all-out strike. And I'm saying that's bullshit. That's a lawyerly argument.
That doesn't matter because the rank and file wanted to do this. This is the difference between me, a communist, a Marxist-Leninist, and social democrats. Social democrats put they elevate the opinions of the union bosses. What I do is I represent and I fight for the opinions of the rank and file. That is what you see Shama Sawant and Workers' Strike Back doing. So we support strikes no matter what. I want the 3-day rolling strike to be successful, right? But as a militant class warrior for the working class and for unions, and as someone who knows what the most successful strategy is, I think we should have did what the rank and file wanted. So the people who have criticism of our strategy, why do you think the union bosses should be able to override the workers who want to do an all-out strike? I don't agree they should have that opinion. But anyway, and for the people who are surprised, And I see one people like, oh, you talk to work. Yeah, RBN is the only independent media channel that did an actual labor summit. What other channel talked to more labor activists than RBN? Not one. Not one. And I posted a challenge, and everyone is silent on that. No one has talked to more workers, more union members in the last year than RBN between our 2 labor summits that we have. Period. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to put this Rumble rant up on the screen. This is from Taddy Mason. Thank you for the donation and for the comment. But this is an important point that I want to give my response to.
Yep.
$825 million strike fund would last 145,000 employees 11 weeks at $500 a week. None of these companies can last that much of a fiscal quarter with nothing being done.
Absolutely.
They'd have to cave first. Yeah, so...
And that's the argument that the Vanguard was making with the strike funds. Oh, the strike funds. Guys, remember, the movement is massively popular. And
but the goal is not to extend the strike. And that's Sean. The goal is never to extend the strike. The goal is not ever for a strike to go on forever. The goal is to maximize the power of the strike so that the strike is as short as possible. The idea is you hit the companies in the gut, knock the wind out of them, and force them to give you what you want. The goal is not to extend the strike. So the idea that, well, we have to extend the lifespan of our strike fund so that we can keep this going on more and more and more, that doesn't make any sense. According to Sean Fain himself, our goal is not to go on strike. That's what he said. So what is this thing? Well, the strike fund, we want it to last not 11 weeks. We want it to last a year. Why do you want to be on strike for a year? If you're on strike for a year, it means your workers are going without a good deal for a year. You want the strike to be short and strong. That's what Shamma said when we had her on our show, because I messaged Shamma after I did that initial segment, because I said, and Misty said in that first segment that we did, we couched it saying, look, we're not experts on this issue, okay? We hope that, Sean Fain knows something we don't. We hope the union knows something we don't. We hope we're wrong on this. And I said at the... on, and I said, hey, what do you think about this? And then we started talking back and forth, and then she said, I'd like to come on and talk. I said, great, obviously. And then she came on, and she basically agreed with our take. So anyway, I just wanted to clear that up because, the idea that us criticizing the strike means we're rooting for it to fail or that we don't want the stand-up strike to happen. That's not true. I would rather the stand-up strike than no strike. Obviously, we're hoping they get the best deal they possibly can. We're just saying, hey, you call the strike authorization vote, which passed 97-3, under the assumption, and that's the thing that has me a little pissed about this, because the idea that, well, we never said we were going to strike all at once, that's bullshit. That's a slippery lawyer argument. Sean Fain himself said when he announced the stand-up strike strategy 2 days before, he said, we're trying a new thing. He sprung it on them at the last minute. There's no getting around that, right? To try and talk...
I'm willing to talk about this because their position is incoherent as far as I'm concerned. Because you say you want to make you're wrong or not. What they are upset with me, Ken, where few people are. These are people who always butthurt about me just for whatever reason because I criticize social democrats, right? But they're upset because I am taking the position of the rank and file. So I would like to ask them, what is unreasonable about my position of putting pressure on union leaders and bosses? And that is my reply while I roasted the Vanguard, where you guys take the position that union bosses are above criticism. Right. In our movement, if you want to be successful, there should be nonstop pressure and criticism of union bosses at all times. So what is the counter argument? What is the argument they're actually making me, Ken? Shut up. Don't ever criticize the union leadership in the professional managerial class. That is incoherent. I don't want to take those people on any day. Because there's a long history in the United States of the PMC class union leadership selling workers out. I was one of the only people who actually followed the Frito-Lay strike. You know, the Frito-Lay strike, union leadership actually undercut the ask of the workers because they didn't want to strike. There's so many examples of this. So these undisciplined social democrats who don't ever read theory, they immediately take the side of union bosses and leadership. When they do that, they undercut the voices of the workers. I am not here to undercut the voices of the worker. Right or wrong, I will always represent their position of the rank and file, and there's never an argument that say I should not do that. The Vanguard, they believe that the professional managerial class, union bosses are above criticism because they are bootlickers of the professional managerial class. I am not. I represent the workers, and I am going to represent the position of the rank and file, period.
Yeah, I think there's a psychology at work here too, which is that a lot of people who, are just sort of left wing, sort of oriented thinkers, people who don't have as much skin in the game, or people who, don't follow these issues as closely as others, especially, the remnants of the Bernie movements have been very disappointed by leaders over and over again. And I think when they see a leader that they invest in, they really sort of attach to them, because they're desperate to admire someone, basically. They're desperate to think, okay, this person is someone who we can follow. This person is someone who we can trust. And I think a lot of them saw that in Sean Fain. And when we started asking questions, they're like, wait a minute, why are you ruining this for us now? Like, why do you have to piss on this now? Because, why are you tearing him down? And I said, my intention was not to tear him down. I hope they succeed. Like, I'm rooting for Sean Fain. I'm rooting for UAW, obviously. But when you see something that just doesn't make sense, and something that, as Nick said, goes against what the workers' expectations were and what they clearly were, you have to call that out, and you have to